personal wisdom needs to have the right questions to ask. This is also something called shadow work, but I want to emphasize that we're wanting to look at and gain our personal wisdom from going through this process. So, a lot of times when we're in a tough spot, we tend to ask questions that don't serve us. So, we'll start with what doesn't work, and then we'll move over into what will work for us. And the questions will be something like, why did this happen to me? How could this happen to me? Why did this happen to me? And what tends to happen when we're in pain, when we're in heartache, it's difficult, it's heavy, and we don't understand we're a good person, we do good things, and then things don't go the way that we want them to go. And so we have this process where we tend to go into this pity mode, and it happens. I have spent many years there. I understand what that looks like. If there was an Olympic event for throwing a pity party, I would win the gold, the silver, and the bronze. I would throw a party like no other, and it would last for years. No problem being able to pull things from my childhood and my past and sit with it and wallow in it. But over time, that doesn't serve me. That doesn't serve anything. And I think sometimes it's a little too easy when the emotions get in us, when they come in front of us, that we hold on to them and we don't know how to release them. And we hear these phrases like, let it go and move through it. But I want to go a little bit deeper and I want to talk about that transition between when we're in a moment and how to start moving out of that moment. And that the goal is that we're really looking at gaining our own personal wisdom. And so I'm going to tell you some questions that we want to ask ourselves. And if you hear them and you're not going through anything, you're going to think this is really easy. Sure, of course, this makes logical sense. But when you're in a moment and you are filled with a heavy heart and pain or shame or guilt, it's kind of the last thing that you want to ask yourself, because there's this sense of like shock that happens when things happen to you and you don't really know how. And I'm being really general because some things can be as small as a parking ticket, which you can shake off pretty easily, to someone passing, someone leaving, something disruptive in your life that kind of shakes the ground underneath you. And it's really, really difficult. And I've had both happen. I've had all kinds of things happen, as I know you have too. I've read your beautiful comments. And so I want to talk about how when we have pain that comes within us, when we start to want to play any kind of, when we have pain that sits in us and we have these emotional waves that happen, we tend to want to hold on to them and we tend to double down on them. And what will happen is that we will spiral and we spiral down into a hole, and it's really difficult to climb out. It is possible to, but the further we hold on to that emotion, and it has weight to it. Energy in motion. That weight is energy in motion, and it has us spiraling down. And so it takes us even more effort to get out of that. So a practice that I've had to learn over the years that I want to share is that when it comes through, like grief will come on its own. Grief can roll in like a heavy fog. And I've learned over time to be able to just sit with it. Any other thing that comes, I made a mistake, I did something wrong, something either happened to me or I did something and it just doesn't sit well. Instead of holding on to this emotion and doubling down on it and putting more weight on the experience, the issue, the emotion, and putting more weight on it, instead of holding on to it, I hold it. And I hold it up and I really just sit with it and let it be. And I get to a place as quickly as I can, but the timing is going to be different for every one of you, depending on the situation, because it's always about context and nuance. But I've learned how to just hold this space and really understand, what do I need to learn from this? And that is really difficult to do when you're in the thick of it. Because when things are happening, especially if they're happening to you, it's kind of the last thing you want to ask. And so sometimes it's not even about what lesson per se I have to put a boundary. I didn't say the thing I should have said. I should have X, Y, and Z. There's that part to it. And then there's also another part where you learn how to have compassion for yourself. And sometimes when we just don't feel good, or we know that there's something that we just have to really learn how to accept, the biggest thing that we can learn is, how do I give myself grace? How do I give myself compassion? And how do I give myself a moment to just be without putting more pressure, weight, running those same thoughts that don't serve me on top of what's already happened, and just be and start to nurture and nurse and care and really do self-care so that I can start to neutralize. And that can take minutes, hours, weeks. It could take however long it takes depending on the situation. But I want to get to a place where I'm neutral, I'm at peace, where that the pain just starts to dissipate and I don't hold on to it. I don't bring it back up. I don't relive any trauma. I just start to see. So the question I want to ask is, what is this supposed to teach me? What am I supposed to learn from this? And this is where we do like real shadow work in the moment, when we get really expert in who we are. When something happens, we're able to sit in the dark and we can pull out these gems, these golden nuggets of wisdom. And this is a big effort, but we want to take them out of the dark and pull them into the light. And so there's in the moment so that we can shift through it. And then there's hindsight afterwards that we'll go look back on and be like, okay, I've had distance now. I'm in a more neutral place. I can get a little bit more out of this. I can see. The first question is, what do I need to learn out of this situation? What do I need to give to myself? How do I need to show self-love, self-care, self-compassion, and maybe for someone else as well? And when I have that place that I'm holding myself and I'm in care, and I start to neutralize whatever emotion's happening, then I can ask the second question, which is, how do I now move forward? I've now taken this golden nugget, I've taken this wisdom, I've taken this insight of how I operate, how I start to handle something that's really difficult. And now I'm going to take that with me and move forward to the next phase, whatever that is. Now I can start getting up, I can start moving, I can start getting on with my day, I can start figuring out what is next in my life and not sit in the pain and wallow in it. I've never had an experience where sitting too long in pity has served me. And I don't know anyone else that has, but we just tend to do that for some reason. And if we do it too often for too long, it gets really comfortable and we tend to stay there because it becomes a different type of comfort zone. So if we can start to look at the grace to move it through, because emotions are like the weather and they really just have to move through. And we take what we need to learn about ourselves and how we deal with it and how we transmute it and alchemize it and get into another place. And ultimately course correct so that we're looking at, I understand when these things come, I understand how I need to handle myself. I understand what I need to give myself. And then I also will have compassion for those who are going through it, because I know what that's like. And we can get ourselves out of anything we want, but we have to have some tools to understand how to start shifting the perspective, gently changing the emotion. And again, it's going to be up to you, depending on the situation, how much care and time you need. But the more you can get in there, and it may not be, if you're really raw, you may need a day or two. You may need a little bit of time to just process before you start asking these questions. You got to do what's best for you. This is just some contemplation to take with you so that you have these tools to start looking at. I need to get out of here. This doesn't serve me, but there's something to gain in it. Because when we want to have an experience, we tend to think that we only want to experience the good, but that's just not how life works. And if we really want to experience the tippy top of the most pleasurable, high exalted experience, we have to have it by contrast, knowing what rock bottom is like. Not that I wish that on anyone, but we have a range. And in life, there's a range that we're going to feel. We're going to feel pain and we're going to feel pleasure. We're going to feel grief and we're going to feel gratitude. And I hope it's more of the pleasure and gratitude side than the grief and pain. but sometimes we need to feel so that we have a full range of emotions, so that when we really look at our lives and we say, I've lived a full life is I've lived a full spectrum of experiences. And in those experiences, I had a full range of emotion. And I understand the heart, I understand the mind, I understand the human experience on all levels. And that's what a wise person understands. That's what a master of this of self, a master of self understands, that full range and how to move through their journey along the way. So first question, what do I need to learn out of this? Second one is, how do I move forward? I hope this was beneficial. I just want to keep it short and sweet. I would love to hear in the comment section if you've ever had a situation, and I know you have, had something that was really painful and you've moved out of it. And I would love if they were just maybe short and sweet. And as much as I would love to hear the backstory of it, maybe just start with pain met me here, or I was met with grief here, and just show what the bridge is to where you got to something great. Maybe it was an affirmation or the way you gave yourself self-care. And I think it would be wonderful down the road if someone stumbles on this video and they're really going through it, or they're not sure how to move forward, that not only watching this quick video, but they can go through the comments and just really gain insight that you've been given and share that with the world. And then you become a light and have a ripple effect in the world. So short and sweet, maybe just a couple sentences if you want to share. And then that way you don't have to divulge everything. And it's just a sense of like, I had this heavy experience. I had this heavy moment of whatever it was. And this is how I triumphed and I became the hero of my own story. And that's always what we want. We want to become the hero of our own story. And we want to figure out how can we just continue that range so that we can feel everything and know that there's always something to gain in everything. And it's usually in the pain, in the suffering, in those dark moments that we gain the most wisdom. Once we understand what that wisdom is, we don't have to stay there anymore. It's just a matter of starting to travel out. So thank you for being here. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. I love you all and take care. Bye.